All right, let's jump straight into this explainer and unpack exactly how the quote-unquote toughest man on Earth actually built his legendary willpower from absolutely nothing. We're going to break down the real evolution of David Goggins, and honestly, the truth behind his transformation is way more fascinating and way more relatable than the superhero myth we're also used to seeing today.
So, let me ask you something. Have you ever had that sneaking suspicion that you were just faking it? You know, waiting around for someone to give you an easy way out so you could just quit without looking like a total failure. I mean, it's a brutal thing to admit to ourselves, right? It's that quiet little voice in the back of your head practically begging for an external excuse to stop trying. Well, if you've ever felt that way, you are absolutely not alone. Because believe it or not, the guy widely considered the toughest man on the planet used to feel the exact same way.
Look, we all know him today as an absolute icon. He's the guy shattering pull-up records, running 100-mile ultra-marathons, just the peak of human toughness. But his real starting point, it was vastly different. He was deeply depressed, intensely insecure, and honestly scared of his own shadow. This is where his journey actually begins. He wasn't just born with this impenetrable iron will. He had to actively and painfully build himself into the machine we see today.
We see the crazy highlight reels online now, but the reality is that whole natural-born superhero narrative is a total illusion. Back in the day, he wasn't a gifted athlete. He wasn't a natural student either. He was a guy who literally had to sit at a kitchen table studying for hours upon agonizing hours just to learn what someone else could pick up in 60 short minutes. Just imagine the sheer exhausting frustration of having to put in 10 times the effort just to reach a normal baseline, just to pass a basic test to get into the Air Force.
And once he finally did make it into the Air Force, he slammed into a massive, terrifying wall: the water. He was thrown into these water confidence drills. Now, this wasn't just learning how to do the backstroke. This was pure survival. Instructors would literally take your air away while you were underwater. It was this suffocating, panic-inducing nightmare that terrified him to his absolute core. It was so intense, he wanted to quit every single night his head hit the pillow.
That fear completely consumed him. He'd lie in bed practically paranoid, dreading the inevitable moment the sun would come up and he'd have to get back into that pool. And then, something happened that felt like an absolute blessing. He got what felt like a winning lottery ticket, a medical excuse. The doctors found out he had the sickle cell trait and told him he couldn't keep training because of a very real severe risk of a stroke or a heart attack.
Think about how this timeline plays out, because it reveals a ton about how our minds handle fear. Week 1, he's just dreading the pool, pure anxiety. Then, week 2 hits, he gets that diagnosis, and, well, he was actually thrilled about it. While his classmates are out there practically drowning and struggling, he's sitting comfortably on the sidelines watching them suffer. He was basically hoping the doctors would boot him so he could leave with a clean, honorable excuse. But then week 3 rolls around. The doctor actually clears him to return to training, and boom, that paralyzing terror is right back. It got so bad that by week 4, he literally lied to his commander, using his medical diagnosis as a shield just to get out of the water. He openly shares this incredibly dark truth about lying and hiding because he wants us to grasp a fundamental rule of human psychology. Your mind has a serious tactical advantage over you. It knows every single one of your deepest fears. It knows all those insecurities you are desperately trying to hide from the world. Your brain is essentially a master tactician that knows exactly which buttons to push to make you quit. You simply cannot run from it, so you might as well turn around and get used to the fight.
He doesn't sugarcoat it either. Goggins actually used these exact brutal words to describe his past self. He calls himself a lazy piece of shit who eventually transformed into one of the hardest workers on Earth. Acknowledging that incredibly low baseline was the absolute only way he could stop running. He had to be wildly raw and honest with himself before he could finally decide to get to work.
So, how do you actually transform yourself? You do it by constructing willpower, and it starts with the most basic building blocks imaginable. It's not magic, guys. First, you have to force yourself to do the things you absolutely do not want to do. And then, you wake up and you do it again. Every single day. Willpower is built entirely out of these small, deeply uncomfortable daily actions. You stack them up, one by one, layer by layer, until they form a foundation that simply cannot be broken. Which brings us perfectly to the concept of the grind. We hear that word constantly in pop culture, usually just meaning, hustling or working late. But Goggins views it entirely differently. For him, the grind isn't just about sweating for the sake of sweating. It acts as this incredibly powerful, necessary filter for your entire life, violently stripping away everything that just doesn't matter.
The contrast is totally wild when you really look at it. Without the grind, you've got idle time. You've got time to be angry,
Time to waste your energy stressing over what some anonymous troll is typing about you on the internet. But with the grind, when you are pushing your physical and mental limits to the absolute brink, it literally cleanses all that toxic noise right out of your system. You get this intense, dialed-in focus, mostly because you just don't have the luxury of time or energy to care about the outside noise anymore.
And all of this preparation, all of those little building blocks, and all of that relentless grinding, it all culminates in what he calls the 1 second. This is it. The ultimate, inescapable, split-second decision we all have to face when things get insanely difficult. This is your defining moment of truth. On one hand, you have the choice to stay in the heat, to just endure the friction, the misery, and the struggle. On the other hand, there's that overwhelming, seductive temptation to just retreat to somewhere warm, comfortable, and safe. That exact split second, that's where most people fail. They let their mind win, and they choose comfort over the heat. So why is that one single second so utterly critical? Because if you fail in that moment, you might spend the next 30 to 40 years of your life trapped, literally trapped in your own mind, looking back, torturing yourself with what-ifs. What if I hadn't quit? What if I just stayed in the heat for literally one more second? That echo of regret can honestly haunt you for decades.
This is exactly why he still pushes himself to the absolute limit today. The guy is nearly 50 years old, still out there running on completely broken down knees. And he isn't doing it because anyone is forcing him to or because he needs more medals. He does it to prove to his own mind that he still can. Because he knows a fundamental truth. Willpower isn't a trophy you put on a shelf. It's a muscle. And the very second you stop using it, all that willpower you worked so relentlessly to build, it just starts to vanish.
The big takeaway here is that we need a complete rewiring of how we view our setbacks. We have to stop viewing past failures as the end of the road. Instead, start seeing them simply as your first, second, and third attempts at getting it right. They aren't stop signs. They are the necessary steps to ensure your hard-earned willpower stays totally intact and keeps growing.
So the challenge is pretty clear. It is time to stop looking for that easy way out. Stop hiding from your own mind and start stacking those building blocks of willpower one painful piece at a time. The heat is coming. That decision is waiting for you. So ask yourself right now, are you going to win your 1 second today? If you're ready to finally face that mind of yours, take these lessons and actually apply them. I'll catch you in the next explainer.